SOLAS, the creation from a disaster. SOLAS, the International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea, was adopted by maritime nations in 1914. The first gathering took place in London, adopting the moniker and took into account lessons that needed to be learned from the RMS Titanic disaster. 2 years after the Titanic disaster, which led to the loss of 1,503 lives, the SOLAS used the inquest that had taken place in that time and all the information it could gather to lay the groundwork. Since the 1914 version, we have had SOLAS 1929, SOLAS 1948, SOLAS 1960, the first under the guidance of the International Maritime Organization, and SOLAS 1974. SOLAS 1974 is still in force today, having been updated and amended with its Chapter 3 going into effect on July the 1st, 1998. The purpose of SOLAS is intended to ensure that in the event of a catastrophe at sea, passengers and crew have the greatest chances of survival. SOLAS being enforced has caused the improvement of design and equipment, better fire protection, satellite communication, rescue ship and training to be put into effect to improve the safety at sea. This all came about in reaction to one of the world's most devastating catastrophes at sea during peacetime. SOLAS, using the RMS Titanic as its base of creation, has led to the disaster going down in history and being one of the most remembered maritime disasters to this day. Here are some of the things that have been put in place since the disaster. Lifeboat design. Some people died of hypothermia in the Titanic lifeboats because they were open and gave no protection against the cold. Under SOLAS, lifeboats must be fully or partially enclosed. On passenger ships, particularly enclosed lifeboats can be used as they are easier to get into, but they must have a collapsible roof to fold across. Training of crew in lifeboat drills. The crew of the RMS Titanic lacked training in loading and lowering the lifeboats, and few knew which boat they were assigned to. Lifeboats were not filled to capacity because senior officers did not know the boats had been tested and were strong enough. Under SOLAS, every crew member must participate in regular practice drills and have easy access to the training manuals. The Titanic did not have enough lifeboats for all its passengers. However, it also had above the legal requirement at the time. Under SOLAS, passenger ships now must legally carry enough lifeboats, some of which can be substituted for life rafts, for all passengers, plus life rafts for an additional 25% over capacity. Immersion suits. The sea temperatures, especially in the Atlantic, when the Titanic sank, was well below freezing point, and many people died in the water from hypothermia. Under SOLAS, a specific number of immersion suits must be carried on both passenger and cargo ships, mainly for crews of rescue boats, to help them survive in the temperatures for longer. A lifeboat drill for passengers. No lifeboat drill was held on the RMS Titanic for the passengers, so none of them knew how to get into the lifeboats. Under SOLAS Chapter 3, an abandoned ship and fire drill must take place weekly on all passenger ships. Additionally, any new passengers that come aboard, there must be a drill during the time frame that they are on that ship so that they know how to react. Evacuation chutes. Passengers on the Titanic jumped from windows and doorways into lifeboats as they were lowered, often injuring themselves or other passengers. New emergency evacuation chutes are both safer and quicker, and now must be mandatory on all passenger ships. These evacuation chutes look very similar to the evacuation chutes that you would find on an aeroplane. A public address system. There was no public address system on the RMS Titanic, and news filtered to the passengers slowly, adding to the disorder and confusion. Additionally, passengers further below deck, or those that were asleep, had less time to learn about the disaster before the flooding reached them. Under SOLAS, all passenger ships must be fitted with a public address system that can be heard on all decks. Location: the land station at Cape Race, Newfoundland, and ships other than the Carpathia and the Californian heard the distress call of the Titanic, but the airwaves were crackling and the Titanic's position was misinterpreted. With EPRBS and global positioning systems, the position of a ship in distress can be automatically sent. Distress watch: the Californian was less than 20 miles away, but the radio officer had gone off duty when the distress messages were sent. At the time, the radio system was only commonly used for passenger messaging system and not as a maritime emergency messaging system, so it wasn't mandatory. However, under SOLAS, every ship while at sea must maintain continuous watch on the distress and safety frequencies, which are now separated from any passenger orientated commercial frequencies. Speed of navigation around ice: the commission into the Titanic ruled the loss was due to collision with an iceberg brought about by excessive speed at which she was being navigated. Under SOLAS, when ice is reported on or near the location of the ship, the course of the master of the ship of every ship at night is bound to proceed at a moderate speed or alter course. He cannot exceed this speed. Ice patrol: in the first SOLAS 1914, after the Titanic disaster, ice patrols in the North Atlantic were sent up and continued to be a SOLAS requirement. These ice patrols located icebergs, to which it then relayed to the ships so that they could all be aware of their locations. Distress alert: the Titanic used radio, which had a limited range of 200 nautical miles. Perceived good at the time due to the narrowing of shipping lanes. However, in modern day times, the shipping lanes are no longer as narrow and are a lot wider. As a result, ships can now communicate globally via satellites, and all ships are required to have some form of satellite communication that it can use in an emergency. Helicopters as well as rescue planes. Unavailable in 1912, helicopters and rescue planes have since been created through various means and are now used to locate, search for and rescue survivors. This at times can be used a lot quicker than that of ships. SOLAS is also putting to mandate that maritime ships that are on the water near that of a distressed vessel are requested, and in some countries required, to receive the maritime disaster and go to help. This is due to the fact military ships are more likely to have rescue vehicles such as lifeboats and speedboats alongside helicopters and rescue planes. These can be used to help save an individual a lot more quicker than those coming from the mainland, such as, for example, the UK's RNLI. While not a legal requirement in some countries, in the United Kingdom it is a legal requirement for the maritime ships of the military to answer any distress call that they may have and to either check up on it or to help with the rescue.